think it was back in September or maybe August that we approved as a commission the land agreement contingent upon approval from the city, and there would not be a billing for those utilities that were moved. So I think we need to review that to see what our approval was, and if it was contingent on our agreement and we don't have an agreement, I think we need to decide how we move forward. So that might be an item that we need to have on the agenda for next month or next meeting.
Okay, we can put that back on the agenda and take a look at it. Yep.
Do we know where that agreement stands? Heidi, have you heard anything?
Yep, I had an email back a couple of weeks ago that said John was working on it and had planned to send it. It was supposed to go out, this was from the 15th of January. It was supposed to go out in yesterday's mail. It's being sent out on the 16th. So.
February?
Of January.
January.
Okay.
So, as far as I know, it was sent out on January 16th. I haven't.
Do you know who was supposed to be sent to?
I would imagine those two guys across from me.
Yeah, I'm not aware that we've received one. Yeah.
Guess we'll have to inquire.
Yeah. Can somebody ask Chris where she knows where it is?
Yeah, we'll figure that out. Either John or I'll make another inquiry. But we'll put it on the agenda for next time.
Thanks. Anything else,
Nope.
John?
No. Not anymore.
Heidi, welcome.
Hello. I don't have anything. I was just going to send out the email to ask for an update on that land.
Thanks so much. Public Service Commission, anybody? I have one quick item. So we met with the City of Dilworth last week. We have a 20-year agreement with the city to provide water to them, and the agreement is up for renewal. And Chris and Bill invited me to the meeting. I thought it went really well, and I think it has to happen this year, whether or not they're going to renew. And so.
Yeah, just a little background with respect to the agreement. First off, the agreement's been very beneficial to MPS, I feel, and I think the feeling is mutual from Dilworth as well, that they appreciate the level of service we provide and the quality water that we sell them on a wholesale basis. The timeline is that we have to provide notice to them by April 1st of this year, and the notice really encompasses just notice that they can cancel the agreement if they desire, but if they want to cancel that agreement, they have to basically send us notification by December 31st of this year. If they don't send us anything, the agreement automatically renews for 10 years. So we're proposing to send that letter within the next couple weeks to give Dilworth the opportunity to give us any input on any changes they might want to see, or we provided them with a draft letter at the meeting. We provided them an opportunity to review the letter and just talk about it. We haven't gotten any feedback on the letter, so I don't anticipate anything. My gut feeling is that they probably will likely want to renew for another 10 years, but it'll be at their discretion.
Thanks. That's all I had. How about you guys? John, not even? Nothing? Okay, Mr. General Manager, what do you got?
I don't know. I do not have anything on my report or for my report. So
are you guys ganging up on me?
Carry on. Yeah, carry on.
Oh. Well, how about the report on my favorite topic, water main assets? And there was an article in the paper I saw yesterday about water main breaking. How many breaks did we have in the last week?
We had 3 come in over the weekend and then 1 on Monday. So we have 2 repaired today. So there's 2 active leaks, but essentially 4 in the last several days. So quite a few breaks in the last little bit. mainly attributable to the large temperature swing. We were so cold. We were very fortunate that we didn't have any main breaks when it was so cold, but when it all of a sudden warmed up and then got cold again, that big temperature variation kind of causes fluctuations within the frost that put additional forces on the water main and ultimately cause water main breaks. So we're working on getting everything back in order, but yeah. Congrats.
How are we doing for the year comparatively? Are we up or down?
We, for this year, we probably had about 10, so we're a little higher earlier this year, but last year we were above average. We had 58 last year, so our average is about 44. So last year was a little higher than normal, but we'll go through a bunch of data with respect to that in the upcoming presentation. So cool. Thanks, just hats off, and appreciation to our field crews for working in the not optimal conditions that we've had the last week. So our crew has done a terrific job of getting water back on, and especially when people are in need, so appreciate that. With that, I'll go ahead, John.
Could you just, on the Perkins break, was that in the restaurant itself, or was that our water main that broke?
The Perkins break was in the restaurant itself, so that was a private facility break or failure. So we assisted Perkins. We had to isolate the system around there to make sure that we could get them off. It was quite a bit of work for us to get it kind of isolated, but once we did, I believe they've had some crews there fixing it. I'm not exactly sure the status of that repair. With that, I'll jump right into the water main asset management plan update, and just feel free to stop me at any time. So back in 1986, we started a replacement program to replace cast iron water main, and there's a couple real important reasons why we started up that program in 1986. Mainly, we had a number of water main breaks in our water distribution system, and those water main breaks are due mainly to the corrosive nature of our soils here. We have really clay. A majority of the soils are based on clay, and that clay is really corrosive towards cast iron water main. So this is actually a picture of what to the right is some cast iron pipe that was pulled out this summer. That cast iron was actually wrapped in plastic when it was installed, so you can still see the writing on it. Most of the time, the cast iron that we pull out is really corroded on the exterior of the pipe and the interior of the pipe as well. Like I said, we'll see some more pictures of that, but just kind of interesting visual of what the pipe actually looks like when it's in the ground. We had a pretty significant effort to replace cast iron water mains from 1986 to 2013. In 2013, with the support of the Commission, we approved the Water Main Asset Management Plan. I refer to it as the WAMP a number of times in this presentation. The impetus behind the WAMP was that we had experienced a number of additional water main breaks and some very significant ones. So we elevated the funding level for that program to really take a more aggressive approach to water main replacement as of 2013. So in 2013, we started that program, and the goal was to really replace the 33 miles of existing cast iron pipe within the next 15 to 20 years within the city. And so we have about 220 miles of total pipe, and the 33 miles that we had remaining at that time were the ones that were really presenting problems. So our goal was to get that done in the next 15 to 20 years, and we've made some headwinds, or we've made some very good progress in that plan, replacing about, our goal at the time was to replace about 10,000 feet. We've replaced 6.54 miles since 2013, so a little less than our goal, but nonetheless, we've made some really good progress getting 6.54 miles of water main out at about a cost of $7.2 million. And I'll note that cost of $7.2 million was elevated largely because our replacement efforts were focused on the downtown area. So one of the last downtown projects we have is actually going this summer, the Center Avenue Water Main Replacement Project. That's really one of the last main pieces of downtown water main replacement. Otherwise, we've got that downtown water main replacement pretty much done, which is a great accomplishment for MPS and beneficial towards the potential redevelopment of downtown Moorhead. So made some really good progress. I'll kind of highlight a few things with regard to kind of the money we've spent and the impact we've had on water main breaks. This kind of a busy chart, but if you follow the blue line, that's the breaks we've had. I mentioned earlier we average about 44 water main breaks, but we've had some variation of that in the past several years, particularly in 2013 where we had a very severe winter. We had almost 100 breaks that year. Since then, the number of breaks has decreased to 2017 where we had slightly less than average. As I mentioned, I didn't get 2018 on here, but we had about 58, I think, main breaks for 2018, so a little bit higher than average. But you can see the red line there is the total amount spent on water main replacement. We had a number of years between 2009 and 2013 until we initiated the WAMP where we weren't spending very much water main on we weren't spending very much on water main replacement. Since 2013, we've elevated that spending significantly, notably in 2016 with the Sims project where we spent in excess of $3.5 million for a variety of replacement projects. So I like to think that significant investment has really played a part in reducing the water main breaks along with a number of other things that we've done on our distribution system, but still a long ways to go. We still have 26 miles of cast iron water main about to replace. So we made some good progress, but still have a ways to go. Oops, I skipped one. And this is just to kind of give you a picture of the replacement versus cost. As I mentioned, in 2016, we did the Sims project, which comprised a lot of replacement work in downtown that has a lot of traffic control, a lot of additional effort for that project. So you can see the cost of replacement there in 2016 kind of matches up to the total high amount of replacement. So the larger the spread between that red line and blue line represents the more footage you're replacing for less cost. So really, the bigger the spread between the two, the more kind of bang for the buck you're getting. That expensive project in 2016 is where they match up perfectly. But in years where we're doing replacement in residential areas such as 2014, 2015, and 2017, that spread becomes greater. That means we're doing the we're doing the replacement on a more cost-efficient basis, getting a higher amount of water main in for less cost. So we really look at the numbers and take an analytical approach to how we can get the most replacement for the least amount of money because we have a fixed amount of money that we can spend. We really try to get the most footage we can for that fixed amount of money. This is a shot of the Sims replacement project, and this is right in front of Hornbachers, if you know where that is. But just kind of wanted to highlight the coordination that we've really been focused on since we initiated the WAMP. Really in 2015, 2016, we had a lot of coordinated projects, and since that time, the majority of our projects have been coordinated with either the city, the state, or whomever initiates a road project. We've been very fortunate to have good collaboration with those partners. Collaboration is important for a variety of reasons, mainly that we can save on pavement restoration costs, and depending on the particular project, sometimes we'll bid it separately from the pavement project. Sometimes there's a benefit to doing that in that the contractors that bid on our work might not be the same ones that bid on a street project. That's the case for Center Avenue this year. So the two different bid packages, the MPS water main project and then the street project. So they're two different bid projects, but there's oftentimes a financial incentive for doing that. And because pavement restoration is such a huge part of our total cost for replacement, that's really where we focus on reducing the amount of pavement that we have to restore. And just by coordinating with the city and the cooperation we've had with the city, we were able to save roughly $240,000 in 17 and 18 just on those coordinated projects alone. And I'll talk a little bit about kind of how those savings were realized, but the important piece is that really good collaboration with the city and able to do projects together. One of the main reasons we were able to realize some of those costs were utilization of something called trenchless technologies for water main replacement. And trenchless technologies is really three different construction methods that we use to realize those cost savings. So one's called horizontal directional drilling, pipe bursting, and slip lining. Those are the three main methods. We've used all three of them, particularly in the downtown area. We've had really good success using pipe bursting and directional drilling. Directional drilling was primarily used on Sims. We'll be using pipe bursting and directional drilling on the Center Avenue project upcoming here in 2019. Slip lining is actually where you put a new pipe inside of an old pipe, and we actually use that for a large portion of Center Avenue, and we're able to generate a significant savings as a result of using that technology. Just to give you a little flavor for kind of our replacement portfolio and how we've integrated those technologies into our construction methods, you can just see the variety of colors that indicates the number of the different construction techniques that we've used over the years. Primarily up until 2013, we used open trench, and the disadvantage to open trench is that there's a lot more pavement cost that you're having to pick up. So we've really incorporated these methods to try to save pavement restoration costs. That was the focus, and that's why we've really put a lot of attention towards utilization of these techniques. And we've actually I've presented a couple times at national conferences on our use of these technologies to save money. So I mentioned that I'd show another picture of water main. This is actually some of the water main we pulled out at 6th Street South. So you can see the kind of the corrosion on the inside of the pipe, and the outside of the bolts are pretty much rusted off. So a lot of times water mains in very tough shape. In particular in this area, we actually had to do a lot of flushing just to keep the rust sediment from building up in that area. So not only were we worried about water main condition, but sometimes water quality can be impacted by poor quality water main as well. So in this particular project, we were fortunate to, the city we identified this project as a really high priority, and the city actually kind of changed some of their plans to fit this project in for them for a street rehab project. So it worked fantastically well. We were able to, this is actually a picture, this is just south of Concordia, 12th Avenue. This was what I would call an MPS self-performed project. So MPS crews performed pretty much all the work. Here's our MPS crew pulling in new fusible water main. And in this particular case, we didn't have to do any pavement restoration, so we were able to complete the project at an $80 per foot cost basis, which in an uncoordinated project, we'd be looking at about $160 a foot. So significant savings there. That's why we're able to, over a 2-year period, realize a savings of about $250,000 just because of this coordination. And got some really good feedback from the residents. We were able to pull that. You can see here we're using pipe bursting, so basically pulling that new pipe in the existing alignment of the old pipe. Got some good feedback from the customers, very little disruption to those folks. And they were very pleased when we were done. No more rusty water complaints. So very good project that we were able to do cost effectively. Just a little different style of project here. This is actually down on 25th Avenue South between 13th Street and 14th Street, I believe. This is it was called the Southside Water Main Replacement Project. This is a project where we actually bid out the project. So we usually get a consultant to help us design the project, and we bid out this project, and the MPS performs the inspection and coordination for the project. And here we did about 3,300 feet of 6-inch cast iron pipe. This was also a pipe bursting project. So you can kind of see in the background, you see all these little pits in the background every so often. Those pits are for a water service. But the pavement in between those pits, we're not taking that pavement out. We're just leaving that in place. And we actually just do a slight, instead of a complete bringing the asphalt up to grade, we only fill it partially full of asphalt, so it's only a few inches below grade. And so we save a lot of money on just doing a partial fill of asphalt on those pits. And then the city actually comes in and mills the rest of it off. So it's no additional cost to the city. We save a lot of money on asphalt based on the pits themselves and then the reduced asphalt cost for filling it partially up to grade. Here's another picture of that particular project. When we have all those pits open, safety is a big concern, so we had to make sure that snow fence, appropriate road closures and everything were maintained. But again, we got a lot of positive feedback, pretty minimally invasive. We were able to get in and out in about a 2-month period. So project went very well. Just wanted to provide a couple of examples for an MPS performed project and a contracted project. Typically, our breakdown of self-performed work to contracted work is about 50-50, but lately, because we've been doing so much more water main replacement, we perform about 40%, contractors do about 60%. So kind of just looking into the future and some of our next steps, I just wanted to highlight some of the areas we've completed since implementation of the WAMP and kind of some of the areas that we're going to need to work on going into the future. So what you'll see on this map is some hotspots. Those are the water main hotspots that we calculated within GIS, and then the kind of tealy, or not tealy, but that bright green color is the areas that we've completed water main projects. So you kind of see we've completed a lot of work in the downtown area and a lot of work kind of on the exterior of town. Surprisingly, the 1920s and 1930s water main are still holding up better than the 1950s and 1960s water main. So you can see a lot of replacement projects happening between 12th and 20th Avenue South. We've had a lot of issues in that area, and that's because it's mostly 1950s and 1960s water main.
What changed in the techniques or the composition that they used?
A couple things. The construction quality was reduced because of the war effort, and then the factor of safety. Factor of safety is a kind of engineering term for the degree of safety. The design standards, it went from a 10 to a 3, so a higher factor of safety represents a better construction. So they reduced the factor of safety significantly. Ultimately, the pipe wall is thinner, and that thinner pipe wall contributes to more water main breaks and faster, more corrosion issues. So you can kind of see the areas that we're really going to be focused on are those hotspot areas. And fortunately, the City of Moorhead pavement management plan aligns very well with those hotspot areas. So of particular note, you can see that really bright one between 12th and 20th Avenue South, approximately between 14th and 20th Street. City of Moorhead has identified that within their 2020 and 2021 pavement management plans as an area they want to focus on, which perfectly coincides with our problem area. So I believe there's going to be some very good opportunities for us to continue to partner with the city. Our current completion rate of approximate how much we're getting done per year is about 7,500 feet of replacement per year. So just kind of using 26 miles as how much we have left. 2037 is the approximate time by which we are looking to get the cast iron completely out of the ground. So you can see I kind of skipped ahead of myself a little bit, but the future funding levels for 19, 20, and 21 are around that $1 million mark. So we can get about that 7,500 feet with that funding level. And the main focus of our current funding level is to try to keep our replacement mostly out of operation, so we're not bonding, kind of a sustainable way to do it, so we're not really having a huge rate impact, but yet getting a lot of replacement done, getting some of our real problem areas addressed. So I feel it's a good, adequate plan for where we're at, but we still have a lot of work to do in the next upcoming years. And as bigger projects come along with the city, we may have to kind of ramp up or ramp down accordingly. But I just kind of wanted to provide a real brief presentation kind of on the significant progress we've made, which is substantial, and then kind of looking ahead a little bit. Some of the things that we'll also be working on is just continuing to maintain our system as well and do additional valve replacement, hydrant replacement as we can. So we've had a real strong focus towards replacement, but we've taken a little bit of a back seat to our maintenance tasks. Well, we're going to, over the next couple of years, have to work some of those maintenance tasks back into our construction routine. So that's the presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
And this meeting every month, and this is kind of from Mary's orientation, This meeting is typically our planning meeting, and we try and avoid having too many action items on this meeting, but more planning, so there's just discussion. And we do it out here because this is a little more conducive to discussion. So this is an abbreviated planning session. If there's questions on the strategic direction of our water asset management plan, then, you know, we can discuss that and decide if you want to, well, you really can't spend more because we're really pushing up the rates, so. But if you're comfortable with the level or comfortable with the program, we'd like to know that too, so, thanks.
It always blows my mind that we have enough pipe in the ground to go from here to Minneapolis, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy
Yeah.
when you think about it. So,
It's a lot of hydrants, a lot of valves, and we've done a really good job tackling it. And I think, you know, the plan we're on, the city of Fargo is actually taking a couple of years off of main replacement, and you know, we have to kind of keep chewing away at it, just to make sure that we stay ahead, because the breaks this time of year are just very, very difficult to fix, and some, you know, the customer inconvenience factor is pretty high as well. So,
what does it cost us per break, roughly?
it's about $5,000 per break, roughly. But yeah, a lot of the other nuisance factors that go with it are, you know, traffic. For example, like right now on Fifth Street, we've had Fifth Street shut down for a couple days. When we have breaks on high trafficked areas, it just becomes a nuisance to the folks that live down there, and then just folks that use that as a method to get to work or what have you.
Well, it's great to hear too that the cooperation with the city is working so well. I mean, that is
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. The presentation I'm doing in Chicago is actually the title is When Capital Improvement Plans Align, kind of how you can put that synergy to work. And I've just been really happy with the relationship we've been able to build, and the money that both parties have been able to save, specifically MPS, you know, saving about $250,000 in 2 years. That's awesome. So
That's another quarter mile, right?
yeah, that's right.
Yep, John.
Chris, there was recently a OSHA letter basically talking about severe weather exposure for workers. How do we monitor that, or what kind of systems do we have in place to make sure that our staff aren't exposed to frostbite or any of those kind of potential issues here?
You know, we just try to make sure, you know, that we're rotating folks in and out. You know, a couple things, you know, during this really cold stretch when it was minus 30, minus 40, we had, you know, we don't do single person call outs. We do two person call outs. But mainly when they're, even in this temperature, you know, when they're working, we try to just rotate in guys. We don't have a specific protocol. It's more or less just keeping guys rotated. If they get wet, you know, change your clothes, get out of there as soon as you can, because these temperatures are severe. There's no question.
Talk about delivering water, because you looked at that as as a strategy as well. When it was really, really cold, we talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, we try to give as good a customer service as we can. So, I mean, in certain circumstances, when it was minus 35 or when it's below minus 20, if we have a main break and we have to shut it off, typically we try to at least deliver some bottled water, do some measures like that to just, you know, at least get people some drinkable water overnight. We fortunately didn't have to do anything like that, but there are certain conditions when it gets below minus 20, typically it's not really feasible to repair water main.
Well, I was talking more specifically to avoid having the workers have to finish it like at night when it was really cold.
Yeah. And that falls in line with that as well.
How have the supply lines been? Have you seen a lot of freeze-ups on the supply lines, or is that enough snow cover this year?
We haven't seen that yet, and I think you're absolutely right. That's attributable to the snow coverage, and that thankfully we do have some significant snow coverage, because I think we'd have some issues. The one thing I did mention to WDAY is we have seen a lot of freeze-ups within facilities, within homes, people who've maybe put a box around their meter, or walled off something around their meter and it gets really cold around their meter and it's not heated. We've seen a lot of probably 5 to 10 frozen meters, things where we see frozen water in the house. That's been the biggest issue with supply lines. But as we get kind of into the late part of February here, we'll be monitoring the water services themselves. Hopefully we don't see a lot of freeze-ups.
So would the advice to homeowners be make sure your meter is clear of any obstructions,
Right.
air
It's
flows
just-
around, that kind of a thing?
Yeah, that the air flows around, that it's still getting some heat, that it's not, less than 50 degrees in the area. That would be good.
Any other questions? Well, thank you a lot.
Yeah.
This was
Thanks.
good. 26 miles. I won't be here when that's done, but I'll be celebrating it.
I will. I hope I am. I hope I am.
Do we need an approval? Motion to approve? Yeah, accept. Anybody willing to make a motion?
I move to accept the report.
You got a second? Second. Oh.
You're on.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Item number 9. Who is speaking to that? Does electrical do any work right now? Or is it just water?
Cheryl, can you switch the presentation over, please? Yeah, if you can put it in presentation mode. I'll just show you. So, item 9 is to approve the specifications and authorize ad for bids for the MPS WTP biological filtration media replacement project. It's kind of a handful of a description, but essentially today we are looking for action with respect to those plans and specifications and authorization of those advertisement for bid. Before we got into that, I wanted to highlight some of the work we've done with respect to the pilot study. So if you'll remember, it seems like a while ago now, but back in 2017, we did a cooperative purchase with the City of Fargo to purchase some filtration pilot equipment. So this presentation is kind of a summary of that pilot project, and I'll kind of build on what we're looking for the future and what we're looking at in terms of the plans for the upgrade. So just a very brief summary of our treatment process, kind of a very simple cartoon. I'll just kind of walk through it. Basically, our Moorhead water treatment plant uses 2 water sources. The Buffalo Aquifer or the Red River. Approximately 80% of our water comes from the Red River. We also sometimes use the Moorhead Aquifer. We take that combined water, and the main processes we do on the water for water treatment is lime softening, ozonation, dual media filtration, and chloramination. So today the focus will actually be on the filtration component of the treatment process. We'll talk in great detail about that component of the treatment process. So we mainly use the Red River for source water, and one of the challenges with that source water is that the water quality fluctuates a great deal just based on seasonal changes. So in the spring, we often get spikes of organic material, lots of mud or other debris going into the river. Those factors really complicate the water treatment process for us. So I call them influent TOC spikes. That just means more organic materials going into the river. And one of the challenges we have is those spikes often occur when the water temperature is really cold. So in the early spring, the water temp is just barely above freezing, and that's when we start to see runoff, and a lot of those organic materials go into the river. Our ozone treatment process is really good at taking out a majority of those organic compounds, or specifically the organic compounds that cause taste and odor issues. However, there are times when the ozonation process can't remove all of them. So the couple of the things that we'll talk about tonight are these two chemicals called geosmin and MIB. They're secondary metabolites of bacteria, and if you have ever tasted, or if you like the taste of beets, the taste of beets is attributable to geosmin. So if you like beets, you like geosmin. Anyways, if you don't like beets, you'll probably find that the taste is off-putting, and you'll probably call and complain about the taste of your water if geosmin is in your water. Nonetheless, these are the two compounds that cause a majority of our taste and odor complaints with respect to water treatment. So, like I said, our current treatment process removes most of those, but even a low amount of those chemicals can cause a reaction from folks. So if you think about a grain of sand in a swimming pool, that level of concentration will trigger a response in 1% of the population. So a very, very small amount can cause a response. So as I mentioned, in 2017, we did a cooperative purchase with the City of Fargo to purchase this pilot equipment, and the purchase was based on that our existing anthracite sand filters, the anthracite media in those filters is in need of replacement. So it's been operating since the plant was built. It's operated very well. But the lifespan of the media itself is about 20 years, and we've been operating it for 20 plus years now. So we wanted to look at replacing it with something called biologically activated carbon. If you've ever used a Brita filter, the black stuff in that Brita filter is carbon that ultimately comes biologically activated carbon. So it's pretty much the same material as what's in a Brita filter. So before we could implement that change, we had to do a year-long pilot study because our regulators wanted to see the performance of that media proven in our treatment process. So we wanted to compare basically 3 different types of that media. There's all kinds of different flavors or different makeups of that BAC, so we had to try 3 different kinds. And ultimately, we wanted to evaluate those respective media against each other for hopefully full-scale implementation in the Moorhead water treatment plant. So here's kind of a little engineering drawing we put together of the skid itself. Basically, 5 different columns with different media types. As I mentioned, we did the cooperative purchase, and we started at about August of 2017. That gray stuff, that's the stuff we'll focus on. That's the media itself, so it's that Brita filter material, and that's what we'll be focusing on for this presentation. One of the things that we utilize in the skid process itself is we actually have a little pump that can feed taste and odor compound into the skid system. So we actually bought big amount of geosmin and MIB to make sure that we could feed it into the system and artificially basically make sure that the media would remove it. So we'll be talking a lot about that. One important note, this pilot filter skid, we never used any of the water that we ran through the skid in our treatment process. It's like a sandbox. We wanted to use it for an experimentation purpose. Here's kind of a close-up of what the skid actually looks like. Again, 5 columns, and then this is a picture of the column empty. When we filled it up with the media, it's just about 36 inches of black BAC material. So one of the main criteria we use for evaluation of those respective filters is measuring the clarity of the water that is produced from those filters. So basically, dirty water comes in to the top of that skid through each filter, and then we measure the clarity of the produced water. Really what we're trying to show here, the blue dot is the control filter. So if you see those blue dots, it's at about the 0.1 range. Filters 1 through 4 are those different types of GAC materials, so they pretty well match the performance of that filter 5. So what we found is that actually all 4 of those respective media provide a statistically equivalent removal of turbidity, i.e. they're all removing the same amount of particles. That's a good thing because it verifies that the BAC material that we'd like to use produces about the same quality of water with respect to turbidity. Then the other important component that we looked at was TOC removal efficiency. And TOC, again, stands for total organic carbon, or the organic material that's in the river. Significantly, we were interested in cold weather removal of organic material because, as I mentioned, that those organic influxes occur when the water temperature is really cold. What we found was, if you pay attention to number 5, so actually a higher bar on this chart represents a higher removal efficiency, which is a good thing. So 5 is the control. F1 and F3 represents filters 1 and 3. There we see significantly higher organic removals, specifically in that below 10 degrees C area as compared to filter 5. So either one of those BAC materials will provide some additional removal as compared to just anthracite. So that's a significant finding because that's really the target of this treatment procedure. We wanted to get more organic removal with this material. And as I mentioned earlier, geosmin is one of the taste and odor compounds that we get concerned about, specifically in the spring. So we dosed a lot of geosmin into the pilot filter and basically saw how well the different medias would remove it. Here, pay attention to the orange dot. The orange dot is the control column, and 1 and 3 are the blue, and the red dots are the ones we're going to kind of pay attention in comparison. So if you see that orange dot, basically in phase 1 of the dosing period, we dose a lot of geosmin. F5 actually doesn't take out very much of it, and then we turn it off, and then we turn it on again. Again, F5 still has very high level of geosmin passing through that filter material. Now going back to the red and purple dots, F1 and F3, there we see that the geosmin concentration in the produced water is much less than the control columns. That's what we want to see. We get quite a bit of additional removal with those BAC media. Both 1 and 3 performed similarly, although filter 3 removed the most geosmin. And this is like a crisis level geosmin concentration of 150 nanograms per liter. We've never seen that in the Red River. We see usually 20. There's probably times when it gets much higher, but suffice it to say our water plant smelled like geosmin during this period. So here's just a brief summary of the removal percentages. We actually did 3 different taste and odor trials. We were really focused on periods where the water temperature was cold, early to late March. And for those 3 trials, we actually got the best removal on filter number 3. So in our upcoming project, we're looking at specifying filter number 3 as our best performing media. And just interestingly, we worked with NDSU, a couple of NDSU graduate students, for a variety of purposes on this project. There's literally thousands of data points that were collected, actually much more than that. Much of it was done by hand. And NDSU has some tremendous facilities from a research standpoint they were able to utilize to benefit the study. Interestingly, so this is an image of scanning electron microscopy. We wanted to see the biomass or the material growing on the media itself. What we found is basically on the left-hand side, that's all just native media basically as you buy it from the store. So not much biomass growing on it. On the right-hand side is actually after the media has been in our filter, we see some significant biomass on GACs A and C, significantly more even than the anthracite itself. And so we think the biomass contributes to the overall performance of the media in a sense that it actually enhances the removal of a lot of the compounds that we're interested in. We're still working on quantifying that difference, but on a visual basis, it appeared that as though we saw more biomass on the GAC media than the anthracite. So ultimately, we elected to go with the filter number 3 media, which provided pretty much the same turbidity removal as the control, with some additional TOC and taste and odor removal properties that we were interested in. So kind of as I've mentioned, really the impetus for us moving forward is to look at putting in that BAC material in our full-scale plant. It offers some big advantages in terms of organic removal and taste and odor compound removal. And we have $425,000 in the 2019 budget for replacement of that media. And we actually have plans and specifications ready for tonight to approve moving forward with the process. I just kind of wanted to bring everybody onto the same page for where we're going. It'll be a big upgrade for our treatment plant, and hopefully offer some additional potential for removal of taste and odor compounds. So I think it'll really enhance our treatment process, and it'll be good for our treatment plant. A huge list of acknowledgments, a huge project team for this. Our staff has put in a lot of hours. Grad students from NDSU, a variety of students from NDSU. A2S was also a partner on the project. Want to acknowledge the City of Fargo for working with us on the cooperative purchase. They're anxiously awaiting us sending it their way in about August or September of this year. So again, a lot of effort from a lot of folks, and appreciate the support from the commission as well. So that's the presentation with respect to the filter media, and be happy to answer questions on that as well.
No questions? So basically, we would replace what we have in there would all come out, right?
Yeah, so I didn't get into the detail about that. Basically, we're going to take the top 24 inches of anthracite. So right now our existing filter is 24 inches of anthracite, 12 inches of sand. What we've elected to do is actually just skim off that anthracite, so they'll come in with vac trucks and actually suck out that anthracite, and then put in 24 inches of GAC material. So brand new, out of the bag GAC material will go into the filters. And that's pretty much the majority of the project. We'll also have to do, I didn't show any pictures of our existing filters, but we'll have to replace several of the troughs are damaged. We're proposing to replace 5 of those troughs in the current plan set. So we're going to kind of repair a few items while we're also working on the media, but the majority of the funding will go towards the media replacement itself.
And what's the expected life of this material? 20 years as well, or?
It's a little bit less. This material isn't quite as robust. It provides more absorption capacity in terms of removing some of those organic compounds, but it's probably more in the 10 to 15 year range, so a little bit less than anthracite, but it offers the additional benefit of some treatment objectives.
So how long is this changeover going to take?
We're proposing to start construction on or around May, and we have it completed this September. So there's quite a bit of detail with respect to the phasing of the project. A variety of plants have done this before, and one of the things, even though we've done a pretty extensive pilot study, I want to make sure that we do one filter at a time, make sure that filter's working before we move to the next step. So we probably could get it done faster, but I wanted to make sure that it went well. So between May and September of this year, we'll be working on this project.
So no interruption for customers, right?
No interruption for customers. We can operate the plant pretty effectively with three filters. We'll have to really be cognizant in our operation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, customers shouldn't notice a difference.
Maybe a different, direction here, because when you had said that you had exceptional work done by staff, Bill, do we have a recognition program in place when we have staff who does something of this sort? Because I think, there's certainly thank you, but when we have staff who go beyond and exceed, and this seems like a pretty sophisticated, complicated project, and I think we should, if we don't have something, we should look at some kind of recognition program.
We do have a recognition program where other employees can nominate employees for recognition, and there's, some hours off and that type of thing, because we don't really do financial rewards for projects like that. But it's recognition is number one, what they get, and then, just a little bit of, like a few hours of additional personal time or something, just to kind of celebrate that. And yeah, this is a good one for that type of recognition. We'd have to talk to the culture committee a little bit about how we would do it when there's a number of people, because we do limit limit the award, if you will, to a certain number per quarter. So if we have this many, because like you see, the list was, quite extensive,
Yeah.
but they all probably deserve it. So we'd have to see if the culture committee would be generous and, figure out how we would want to do that. Yeah, that's just one that we have, and that's more internal to the employees. We could look at something different just for special projects like that, which wouldn't be a bad idea. We can look into that.
Anybody else? If somebody's willing to make a motion or interested,
I'll make a motion to approve item 9 as proposed.
you have a second?
Second?
Chris was getting all nervous here.
I'll make you sweat.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Wrong.
What's that?
I may be interrupted here, but it's been a motion approved, so I just have a question for Chris on another matter. With the discussion of the filtration system of water going in to a water supply, I just had a personal experience as far as having some drain issues and what was dumped into the drain to clean it out. Do we have issues with people dumping unusual toxic product down our drains? And if so, do we need to do any education of what should not be put in or down drains, or is that not a problem?
So, yeah, broadly, putting things into the Red River is a big issue. For example, there's some concerns probably with your specific issue in terms of what you're dumping down. But a good example is things called contaminants of emerging concern. Those can be like pharmaceutical compounds. That's a big issue for us, or other compounds that are soon to be regulated. The one that comes to my mind are the pharmaceutical compounds, in that, proper disposal of your medications and things like that. Not putting them down the drain is huge for us, because those ultimately end up in the Red River and oftentimes are difficult to remove in our treatment process. Actually, the GAC material that we're putting in offers some additional removal of those compounds, but yes, there are some things that you should not absolutely put down the drain. That's a big one, but in terms of like drain cleaners and things, I'm not sure of your specific inquiry, but I don't know if the city has any regulations with respect to that, but yes, like point source contamination as a result of pharmaceutical things like that, that's a big issue.
Maybe that's something we can look at in the future as far as website or whatever the case, because I'm thinking that people are dumping more and more stuff down their drains that, I mean, I'm sure there's cases that you wouldn't believe what they're disposing of
Right.
for it. So that might be something that we could use as a project or them down the future.
Well, that goes hand in hand with how we protect the aquifer, right? I mean, we get 80% of the water out of the river, but we have to be able to switch over to aquifer if we need to. So that's, it's the same thing there. If somebody pours some down, it goes right into our water. So good point. Cool. We're going in closed session, right? Into closed session? Yeah. Do we think we're going to have action coming out? No. So we'll close this meeting with we close this meeting for executive session as authorized by Minnesota Statute Section 13D05, Subdivision 3C, to discuss possible property transactions involving parcel numbers 58-470-0010 and 58-470-0090 in Moorhead. So we need to have a motion to go into closed session and then close the meeting after closed session, correct? Anybody willing to so move?
I'll move. Go into closed session.
Give a second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, going in closed session, and we are not going to do anything afterwards.